Petunia's Rocket Adventure, a little piggy's journey to the stars. Petunia was a curious little piggy who lived on a farm in the countryside. She spent most of her days playing with her piggy friends, eating apples, and rolling around in the mud. But she had a secret dream that no one else knew about. She dreamed of exploring the universe and flying to the stars. Petunia was fascinated by the night sky, and she would often lay in the grass and stare up at the stars, imagining what it would be like to travel through space. She read books about space travel and watched documentaries on the stars, but she knew that she could never explore the universe on her own. One day, Petunia decided to share her secret dream with her closest friend, a wise old owl who lived in a tree near the farm. The owl listened intently to Petunia's dream and smiled knowingly. "Petunia," the owl said, "you may not be able to fly on your own, but there are other ways to explore the universe." Petunia was confused. She had never heard of any other way to explore the universe besides flying. The owl explained that there were rockets and spaceships that humans had created to explore space. Petunia was amazed by this new information and asked the owl if she could build a rocket too. The wise old owl chuckled and said, "It's not that simple, my dear. Building a rocket is a complex and dangerous process, and it requires a lot of knowledge and expertise." Petunia was disappointed but not deterred. She was determined to find a way to build a rocket and explore the universe. So she spent the next few weeks reading every book she could find on rocket science and space travel, determined to learn as much as she could. Eventually, Petunia came up with a plan to build her own rocket. She gathered materials from around the farm, including scrap metal and old tools, and began to build her rocket in secret. She worked tirelessly day and night until finally her rocket was complete. Petunia was overjoyed. She had built her very own rocket, and she was ready to explore the universe. She knew that her journey would be long and dangerous, but she was determined to see it through. With a heart full of hope and excitement, Petunia climbed into her rocket, ready to blast off into space. Petunia was ready to launch her rocket into space. She had planned everything meticulously and had made all the necessary checks to ensure that her rocket was safe to fly. She strapped herself into the cockpit and prepared for liftoff. The engines roared to life, and the rocket slowly lifted off the ground. Petunia felt the force of the G-forces as the rocket climbed higher and higher into the sky. She could see the Earth getting smaller and smaller as she soared into space. She was ecstatic as she watched the stars getting closer and closer. As she reached the edge of the Earth's atmosphere, she felt weightless, and she knew that she was truly in space. She gazed in wonder at the beauty of the universe, and she felt an immense sense of joy and freedom. She was finally living her dream. Petunia's journey had just begun, and she knew that there were many more adventures waiting for her in the vast expanse of space. She couldn't wait to explore all the planets and galaxies she had read about in her books. She knew that her adventure would be full of challenges, but she was confident that she was up for the task. Petunia flew her rocket ship towards the sun, excited to explore the closest planet to it, Mercury. As she approached, she noticed that the planet was incredibly hot and fiery, with temperatures that could melt steel. Petunia landed her rocket ship on the surface of Mercury, and as she stepped out, she felt like she was in an oven. She quickly put on her protective suit, which she had designed to keep her safe from the harsh conditions of outer space. As she looked around, Petunia saw that Mercury was a barren and rocky planet, covered in craters and mountains. There were no trees, no water, and no signs of life. But Petunia was determined to explore every inch of this new world. She took out her space rover, which she had built to help her explore different planets. She drove it across the rocky terrain, bouncing over craters and dodging giant boulders. Along the way, she discovered some fascinating things about Mercury. She found out that it is the smallest planet in the solar system and the closest planet to the sun. She also learned that the surface of the planet is covered in a thick layer of dust and rocks, which were blasted out of the craters by meteor impacts. As Petunia continued her exploration, she stumbled upon a cave that led deep into the planet. She followed the cave, eager to see what secrets it held. After a while, she emerged into a large cavern filled with shining crystals. Petunia was amazed by their beauty, and she knew that she had to take some back with her to share with her friends. But as she was gathering the crystals, she heard a rumbling sound coming from deep within the planet. Suddenly, the ground beneath her began to shake, and she realized that the cave was about to collapse. Petunia quickly jumped back into her space rover and drove out of the cave as fast as she could. As she emerged from the cave, she saw a spectacular sight. The sun was setting on the horizon, casting a brilliant orange glow over the rocky landscape. Petunia sat back in her rover and watched as the sun disappeared below the horizon. She knew that she had discovered something incredible on Mercury and couldn't wait to see what other adventures awaited her in the vast expanse of the universe. As Petunia's space rocket approached Venus, she was amazed by the planet's beauty. The second planet from the sun was a stunning sight to behold, with its bright and shiny surface reflecting the sunlight. Petunia marveled at the thick layer of clouds surrounding Venus, creating an almost surreal atmosphere. As she began to descend towards the planet's surface, she realized that the extreme heat made it almost impossible for any living creatures to survive there. The temperatures on Venus can reach up to 864 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hotter than the temperature of the average oven. Petunia quickly adjusted her rocket's temperature control and made a safe landing on the planet's surface. Petunia stepped out of her space rocket and took a deep breath. She was relieved to find that she could still breathe, as Venus has a similar composition of gases to Earth, including nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and trace amounts of other gases. However, the air on Venus is extremely toxic due to the high levels of sulfuric acid in the atmosphere. Petunia put on her protective gear to explore the planet's surface. As she walked around, Petunia marveled at the stunning geological formations on the planet. The rugged terrain was filled with deep canyons, towering mountains, and ancient volcanoes. She took samples of the rocks and soil to study them back home. After spending some time exploring Venus, Petunia realized that it was time to return home. As she took off, she looked back at the beautiful planet with a newfound appreciation for its unique features. She knew that her journey had just begun, and there were many more wonders of the universe left for her to explore. After exploring Venus, Petunia felt exhausted and decided to take a break on Earth before heading to Mars. She landed her rocket on a grassy field and took a deep breath of the fresh air. Petunia was fascinated by how different Earth was compared to the other planets she had visited. The air was filled with different scents, and there were many colorful flowers and trees around her. As she wandered around, she noticed a group of children playing in the nearby park. She felt a sudden pang of loneliness and wished she had someone to share her adventures with. But then she remembered her mission and felt determined to continue her journey. Petunia went back to her rocket and began preparing for her trip to Mars. She double-checked all of her equipment and supplies and made sure everything was in working order. After a few hours of preparation, Petunia was ready for liftoff. The rocket soared high into the sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. Petunia could see the curvature of the planet from her window, and she felt a sense of awe and wonder at the beauty of her home planet. As she flew towards Mars, she thought about all the amazing adventures she had already experienced and all the new ones that lay ahead. She was excited to see what wonders Mars had in store for her. She had a long way to go before she could reach her destination, Mars. She had read about the red planet in her space books and couldn't wait to explore it for herself. As she approached Mars, Petunia noticed that the planet looked much different than she had imagined. Instead of a vibrant red color, it appeared to be more of a dull orange. But Petunia didn't let this discourage her. She was determined to explore the planet and discover all its secrets. Petunia carefully landed her rocket on the dusty surface of Mars. She stepped out onto the planet's rocky terrain and took a deep breath. The air was thin and chilly, but she was prepared for the harsh conditions. As she explored the planet, Petunia discovered that Mars was covered in vast deserts and rocky mountains. She saw a few craters in the distance and wondered if they were caused by meteorite impacts. Petunia was fascinated by the planet's unique features and couldn't wait to learn more. She decided to do some research and found out that Mars was once believed to have flowing water on its surface. She wondered if there was still any water left on the planet. She began to explore the planet's many valleys and canyons, hoping to find any signs of water. As she wandered through the rocky terrain, she suddenly heard a bubbling sound. She followed the sound until she came across a small stream of water. Petunia was overjoyed. She had found water on Mars. She carefully collected some samples to take back with her to Earth for further analysis. As Petunia continued to explore the planet, she also discovered that Mars had 2 small moons, Phobos and Deimos. She was amazed by their irregular shapes and wondered how they were formed. Petunia spent several days on Mars, exploring its unique terrain and discovering its secrets. She learned that Mars was a planet full of surprises and that there was still so much more to be discovered. Finally, it was time for Petunia to return home. She said goodbye to Mars, promising to return one day to explore even more of its mysteries. As she flew away from the planet, she couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder and excitement. She knew that there was still a vast universe out there waiting to be explored, and she couldn't wait to continue her journey. Petunia was excited to visit the largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter. As she approached the planet, she was amazed by the size of it. It was so large that it looked like a big, swirling ball of colors. She landed on one of Jupiter's many moons called Io, which was famous for its active volcanoes. Petunia was a little scared at first, but she was also fascinated by the fiery eruptions. She watched as lava spewed from the volcanoes and flowed down the mountainside. As she explored the moon, she discovered that there were also many geysers shooting water and gas high into the air. Petunia was amazed by the beauty of the geysers and the different colors they created. Next, she flew to Jupiter itself and was amazed by the giant red spot, a storm that has been raging on the planet for hundreds of years. Petunia flew through the storm, feeling the strong winds and turbulence, and she was glad her rocket was sturdy enough to withstand the pressure. Petunia also discovered that Jupiter had many other moons, each with its own unique features. She visited Europa, a moon with a frozen surface and a subsurface ocean. She marveled at the icy surface and the possibility of life beneath the surface. Petunia was sad to leave Jupiter, but she knew that there were still many other planets to explore. She said goodbye to the giant planet and set her sights on Saturn, the next planet on her journey. Petunia continued her journey to the 6th planet, Saturn. Saturn was different from any other planet Petunia had visited. It was famous for its rings, which were made up of billions of icy particles. Petunia couldn't believe her eyes when she saw the magnificent rings around Saturn. She flew through them, and they glittered in the sunlight. She also discovered that Saturn had many moons, more than any other planet in the solar system. She explored some of them and found that they were icy and rocky. She saw a few craters and mountains, but overall they were quiet and peaceful. Petunia found Saturn to be a very calm and serene place. She loved the view of the planet and its rings, and she felt a sense of peace while she was there. She spent several days there, enjoying the view and taking in the beauty of the planet. After some time, Petunia felt that it was time to continue her journey to the next planet. She said goodbye to Saturn and its moons and set off into the vastness of space once again. After spending some time on the beautiful Saturn, Petunia continued her journey to the next planet, Uranus. She had learned so much about the universe and was eager to see what other wonders awaited her. As she approached Uranus, she was struck by the planet's unique appearance. Unlike the other planets she had visited, Uranus had an almost completely blue-green color. It was also tilted on its side, causing its rings to appear vertical rather than horizontal. Petunia marveled at the beautiful rings surrounding Uranus, which were made up of thousands of small rocks and ice particles. She couldn't believe how stunning the planet was, and she was grateful for the opportunity to witness it firsthand. After admiring the rings for a while, Petunia decided to explore the surface of Uranus. She landed her rocket on the planet's icy terrain and stepped outside to take a closer look. The surface of Uranus was cold and barren, with icy mountains and frozen lakes. Petunia found it fascinating how different each planet was, and how each one had its own unique features and characteristics. As she continued to explore, she came across a large crater. Upon closer inspection, she realized that it was filled with diamonds, glittering in the sunlight. She couldn't believe her luck at stumbling upon such a treasure trove. After collecting a few diamonds to take back to Earth as souvenirs, Petunia said goodbye to Uranus and continued on her journey through the solar system. She felt grateful for the opportunity to travel to these amazing planets and couldn't wait to see what other adventures awaited her. Petunia finally reached Neptune, the last planet in her journey. She was fascinated by the bluish-green hue of the planet and the giant swirling storms that raged across its surface. She couldn't wait to explore this mysterious world. As she prepared to land her rocket, Petunia noticed that the planet's surface was not solid, but rather a slushy mixture of ice and rock. She had to maneuver carefully to avoid crashing into the icy surface. After a few tense moments, she landed her rocket safely on the surface. Petunia stepped out of her rocket and was immediately struck by the icy winds that whipped around her. She wrapped her scarf tightly around her neck and began exploring this frigid world. As she wandered across the icy terrain, Petunia spotted towering ice mountains and vast frozen plains. She was amazed by the glittering ice crystals that covered the planet's surface, creating a sparkling, otherworldly landscape. But Petunia's exploration of Neptune was not without danger. The extreme cold and harsh winds made it difficult for her to navigate, and she had to take extra precautions to keep herself and her equipment from freezing over. Despite the challenges, Petunia persevered, driven by her curiosity and thirst for adventure. She collected samples of the icy rocks and crystals, eager to bring a piece of Neptune back home with her. As she made her way back to her rocket, Petunia couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. She had traveled to the very edge of the solar system, braving countless dangers and challenges, all to satisfy her curiosity and explore the unknown. With her mission complete, Petunia soared back towards Earth, eager to share her incredible journey with all of her friends back home. Petunia returned home to her farm, feeling happy and proud of all her adventures. She couldn't wait to tell her family and friends about her incredible journey through space. As soon as she landed her rocket on the farm, she rushed to her pig pen to share her stories with her piggy friends. They all gathered around her, fascinated by her tales of exploring the universe. Petunia described the beauty of each planet, from the scorching heat of Mercury to the stunning rings of Saturn. She talked about the different colors and sizes of each planet and how amazing it felt to float in zero gravity. Her family and friends were amazed by her bravery and curiosity, and they listened with wide eyes as she shared her stories. They asked her lots of questions about what she had seen and heard in space, and Petunia was happy to answer them all. As the sun began to set, her family gathered around for dinner, and she continued to tell them about her adventures. They listened with joy and wonder, and Petunia knew that she would always treasure the memories of her incredible journey through the universe. From that day on, Petunia's friends would often come to visit her on the farm, asking her to retell her stories of space exploration. Petunia was happy to share her experiences, and she knew that her journey had not only fulfilled her own dreams, but had also inspired others to dream big and follow their own passions.